The invasion begins. In the vast, star-speckled expanse of the galaxy, the Gorthan Empire's scouts had long observed Earth. Their reports spoke of a primitive world, its inhabitants a mix of curiosity and conflict, struggling with their own internal squabbles. It was a species with potential, but one that had yet to unlock the full scope of its capabilities. The Gorthan Empire, with its advanced technology and ruthless efficiency, had decided it was time to test their new experimental weapons on this so-called primitive species. On a crisp autumn morning in a bustling city, the sky above was suddenly pierced by the blinding light of alien craft. As the metallic behemoths descended, their dark silhouettes cast ominous shadows over the streets below. Panic spread through the city as people looked up in horror. The Gorthans had arrived, their purpose clear: to subjugate or annihilate. The invasion was swift and brutal. The Gorthan war leader, Zoreth, led the assault with grim determination. He had seen many worlds fall before his feet, and Earth would be no different. Except he was not prepared for the fierce resistance that awaited him. From every corner of the city, citizens began to fight back with an intensity that Zoreth had not anticipated. Makeshift weapons and old military stockpiles were quickly mobilized, and a determined defense began to take shape. In the heart of the chaos, a young scientist named Dr. Elena Garcia emerged as an unlikely hero. Having been a part of a secret government project researching advanced defense technologies, she quickly recognized the gravity of the situation. With her team, she worked feverishly to deploy their experimental defenses, hoping against hope that they could turn the tide. The battle raged on through the day and night, with the city's skyline illuminated by explosions and tracer fire. Despite their advanced technology, the Gorthans found themselves increasingly frustrated. Earth's defenders, though outmatched in technology, showed an indomitable spirit that Zoreth had underestimated. The Gorthans were used to worlds surrendering in despair, but here, the humans fought with a ferocity that was both surprising and inspiring. As the first day of the invasion came to a close, Zoreth regrouped with his officers, their faces etched with the stress of the unexpected resistance. "These humans," Zoreth growled, "are not like the others. They fight for their home with a passion I have not seen before. Increase the assault. We must break their spirit before their courage overcomes us." Dr. Garcia, meanwhile, was working tirelessly, coordinating with other scientists and military leaders to strategize the next moves. She had seen the reports of Gorthan weaknesses and was determined to use every bit of knowledge she had to protect her world. Her team managed to create a temporary shield that repelled the Gorthan weaponry long enough for the city's citizens to regroup and reinforce their defenses. The battle was only beginning, and the fight for Earth had transformed from a desperate struggle into a full-scale war. Zoreth's initial confidence was shaken, and Dr. Garcia's hope grew stronger. The resilience of humanity was on full display, and the Gorthans would soon realize that Earth was not just another world to be conquered. It was a place where humans would not go down without a fight. The counterattack. The battle had reached a critical point. As the second day dawned, the once bustling city had turned into a war zone, with crumbling buildings and debris littering the streets. Dr. Elena Garcia and her team continued to work tirelessly, their efforts increasingly crucial to the city's defense. They had managed to delay the Gorthan advance, but the enemy was relentless and adapting to the human resistance. In the Gorthan command center, Zoreth's frustration was palpable. His once confident demeanor had been replaced by irritation. The humans were proving to be a thorn in his side, and their unexpected resilience was starting to wear him down. "These creatures refuse to break," Zoreth said, his voice laced with anger. "What is their source of strength?" Meanwhile, the humans were regrouping and strengthening their defenses. The city's leaders had come together, forming a united front against the alien threat. They recognized that their best chance of survival was through cooperation and innovation. Dr. Garcia, along with a coalition of military strategists and scientists, devised a bold plan to counterattack. The plan involved using the city's power grid to create a makeshift EMP, electromagnetic pulse, weapon. The idea was to disrupt the Gorthan technology temporarily, giving humanity a window to strike back and push the invaders back. It was a risky move, but it was the best option they had. As the sun set, the city's defenders prepared for their counterattack. The EMP device, concealed within the power grid infrastructure, was activated. The resulting pulse caused a massive disruption in the Gorthans' communications and weapon systems. For a brief moment, the Gorthan forces were thrown into disarray. Seizing the opportunity, human forces launched a coordinated assault on the alien invaders. The streets, once filled with chaos and despair, were now alive with the sounds of determined resistance. The Gorthans, caught off guard, struggled to regain control. The humans' newfound confidence and coordination began to turn the tide of the battle. Zorath, witnessing the sudden shift in the battlefield, was furious. He ordered a full retreat of the Gorthan forces to regroup and reassess their strategy. The EMP had provided the humans with a temporary advantage, but the war was far from over. As the night fell and the city quieted, Dr. Garcia and her team took a moment to catch their breath. The counterattack had succeeded in pushing the Gorthans back, but they knew that the fight was far from over. The Gorthans would undoubtedly return, and the defenders needed to be prepared for the next wave of the invasion. The battle for Earth had become a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity. The Gorthans had underestimated the strength of the human spirit, and the tide of war had begun to shift. With each victory, however small, the humans grew more determined to protect their world and show that they would not be conquered so easily. The Gorthans' desperation. The Gorthan Empire was not accustomed to failure. Zorath's latest defeat had ignited a fierce determination within the Empire's leadership. They could not afford to let a primitive world like Earth stand as a symbol of their potential weakness. Orders came from the highest echelons of the Empire. The invasion must be completed at all costs. Zorath was summoned back to the command ship, a vessel of immense size and power, where he was met with a council of high-ranking officials. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a mix of frustration and resolve. The Gorthan leaders demanded answers and a new strategy to deal with the human resistance. "Our initial assessment of this world's inhabitants was flawed," Zorath admitted, his tone reflecting both anger and frustration. "They possess a resilience we did not anticipate. We need a new approach to break their will." One of the council members, an experienced tactician named Vorton, proposed a radical plan. "We will deploy our full arsenal, use our most advanced weapons, and initiate a planetary bombardment if necessary. These humans must be shown that their resistance is futile." The plan was approved with little dissent. The Gorthan Empire was determined to crush the human spirit and complete their conquest. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Elena Garcia and her team were preparing for the possibility of an escalated assault. They had managed to hold the line so far, but the Gorthans' new strategy was alarming. In the heart of the city, the leadership team convened to discuss their next moves. The news of the impending bombardment reached them, and the gravity of the situation was apparent. They had to act quickly to prevent the complete devastation of their world. Dr. Garcia proposed the construction of a network of underground bunkers and defensive installations to protect civilians and key infrastructure from the Gorthan onslaught. As the Gorthan forces prepared for their assault, the humans worked tirelessly to fortify their defenses. The city's once bustling streets were now largely empty, as people took refuge in the underground bunkers. The atmosphere was one of grim determination, as the defenders knew that their survival depended on their ability to adapt and innovate. The Gorthans unleashed their full might upon the city. The skies were filled with the dark streaks of plasma cannons and explosive ordnance. The earth shook with each impact, and the city's defenses were put to the ultimate test. The Gorthan bombardment was relentless, designed to break the human spirit and force a surrender. Dr. Garcia, overseeing the operation from an underground command center, watched the destruction unfold on monitors. Despite the overwhelming odds, The human spirit remained unbroken. The defenders fought back with everything they had, using their limited resources to launch counterattacks and slow the Gorthan advance. As the bombardment continued, the Gorthan forces began to encounter unexpected resistance. The underground bunkers were proving to be more resilient than anticipated, and the humans' guerrilla tactics were disrupting the Gorthans' assault. The tide of the battle was shifting once again, and the Gorthans were beginning to realize that Earth was not an easy conquest. The Gorthan leadership watched the situation with growing concern. Their initial confidence had given way to doubts, and the realization that they might not achieve a quick victory was starting to sink in. Zorath, now under immense pressure, knew that the success of the invasion hung in the balance. The turning point. The Gorthan Empire's relentless assault had pushed Earth's defenders to their limits. The city lay in ruins, but the human spirit was not easily extinguished. Despite the overwhelming odds, a glimmer of hope persisted as Dr. Elena Garcia and her team continued to defy expectations. In the aftermath of the bombardment, the defenders regrouped and evaluated their situation. The underground bunkers had held firm, and the Gorthan advance had been slowed. The human resistance was far from defeated, and the determination to protect their world remained unshaken. Dr. Garcia realized that the key to turning the tide lay in understanding the Gorthan technology. She and her team worked tirelessly to analyze captured Gorthan equipment and devise new countermeasures. They discovered a critical vulnerability in the Gorthans' energy shields, a weakness that could be exploited to gain the upper hand. With this newfound knowledge, the defenders launched a daring operation to strike at the heart of the Gorthans' command structure. They targeted key facilities and supply lines, aiming to disrupt the enemy's operations and weaken their control over the invasion force. The operation was risky, but the stakes were high. As human forces moved through the ruins of the city, they encountered fierce resistance from the Gorthan troops. The battle was intense, with both sides exchanging fire and maneuvering for advantage. Despite the challenges, the human counteroffensive proved successful. The Gorthan command facilities were hit hard, and their supply lines were severed. The disruption caused significant confusion within the Gorthan ranks, and their once coordinated assault began to falter. Zorath, observing the chaos from his command ship, realized that the situation was deteriorating. The Gorthan forces were struggling to maintain their grip on the city, and the human resistance was becoming increasingly effective. It was clear that the tide of the battle had shifted in favor of the defenders. As the human counteroffensive continued, the Gorthan leadership was faced with a difficult decision. The initial strategy of overwhelming force had failed, and the prospect of a prolonged conflict was daunting. Zorath, now under intense scrutiny, knew that the success of the invasion depended on finding a new approach. Dr. Garcia, meanwhile, remained focused on the task at hand. The defenders had gained a significant advantage, but the fight was far from over. The Gorthans were a formidable foe, and the humans had to remain vigilant to protect their world from further devastation. The turning point in the battle had been reached, but the struggle for Earth was far from over. The defenders were prepared for whatever came next, ready to continue their fight with the same resilience and determination that had carried them through the darkest moments of the conflict. The Gorthan retreat. The battle for Earth had reached a critical juncture. The Gorthan Empire's strategy of overwhelming force had been met with unexpected resistance, and the tide of the conflict had shifted. The human defenders, bolstered by their recent successes, were now in a strong position to press their advantage. Zorath, the Gorthan war leader, faced mounting pressure from his superiors. The failure of the invasion had become a major concern for the Empire, and the prospect of a protracted conflict with the humans was increasingly unacceptable. The Gorthan leadership had grown impatient and demanded a new strategy to bring the conflict to a decisive conclusion. In response, Zorath ordered a tactical retreat. The Gorthan forces began to withdraw from the city, regrouping and preparing for a new phase of the invasion. The decision to retreat was not made lightly, but it was a necessary step to avoid further losses and reassess the situation. The retreat was executed with precision, as the Gorthan forces pulled back from the city and established a defensive perimeter. The withdrawal was a testament to the Gorthans' disciplined approach to warfare, but it also indicated a recognition of the formidable challenge posed by the human resistance. Dr. Elena Garcia and her team observed the retreat with a mix of relief and caution. The city was no longer under immediate threat, but the Gorthans were far from defeated. The defenders knew that the conflict was far from over, and that the Gorthans would likely return with a new strategy. As the Gorthan forces withdrew, the human defenders took the opportunity to assess the damage and begin the process of rebuilding. The city had suffered extensive destruction, but the resilience of its people shone through. The sense of unity and determination was stronger than ever, and the defenders were committed to ensuring that their world would not fall to the invaders. In the aftermath of the retreat, Dr. Garcia and her team focused on analyzing the Gorthan technology and tactics. They aimed to understand the enemy's strengths and weaknesses to better prepare for the next phase of the conflict. The information gathered during the battle would be crucial in developing strategies to counter the Gorthans' future actions. The Gorthan Empire, meanwhile, was engaged in a period of intense reflection and preparation. The retreat had been a setback, but it also presented an opportunity to refine their approach and address the vulnerabilities exposed by the human resistance. The Gorthan leadership was determined to learn from their mistakes and ensure that their next move would be more effective. As the conflict continued, both sides prepared for the next phase of the battle. The Gorthans were regrouping and strategizing, while the humans remained vigilant and resolute. The struggle for Earth was far from over, and the outcome of the conflict would depend on the ability of both sides to adapt and overcome the challenges that lay ahead. The unexpected alliance. The withdrawal of the Gorthan forces had provided a temporary reprieve for Earth's defenders, but the conflict was far from over. The city was in the process of rebuilding, and the humans were preparing for the inevitable return of the Gorthans. However, a new and unexpected development was about to alter the course of the conflict. In the midst of the rebuilding efforts, Dr. Elena Garcia received an unexpected communication from an unknown source. The message was encrypted and contained a series of coordinates and instructions. Intrigued and cautious, Dr. Garcia assembled a small team to investigate the source of the message. The coordinates led them to a remote location on the outskirts of the city, where they discovered a hidden underground facility. Inside, they encountered a group of beings who identified themselves as members of a resistance faction from a neighboring alien race known as the Veridans. The Veridans were a technologically advanced race that had also suffered under the oppression of the Gorthan Empire. Their leader, Commander Area, explained that they had been monitoring the situation on Earth and were impressed by the human resistance. They had decided to offer their support in the fight against the Gorthans. The alliance between the humans and the Veridans was formed out of necessity and mutual respect. The Veridans brought with them advanced technology and strategic expertise that complemented the human efforts. Dr. Garcia and Commander Area quickly established a collaborative relationship, sharing information and resources to enhance their joint efforts. The newfound alliance proved to be a game-changer in the conflict. With the Veridans' assistance, the human defenders were able to develop new technologies and strategies to counter the Gorthan threat. The Veridans provided valuable insights into Gorthan tactics and vulnerabilities, enabling the humans to strengthen their defenses and mount more effective counterattacks. As the Gorthans regrouped and prepared for their next move, they were met with a renewed and formidable resistance. The combined forces of humans and Veridans presented a united front that the Gorthans had not anticipated. The battle for Earth had taken on a new dimension, with the unexpected alliance altering the dynamics of the conflict. Dr. Garcia and Commander Area worked closely to coordinate their efforts and plan for the next phase of the battle. The collaboration between the two races was a testament to the strength of unity and the power of cooperation in the face of overwhelming odds. The Gorthans, now confronted with a more powerful and organized resistance, were forced to reconsider their strategy. The unexpected alliance had turned the tide of the conflict, and the outcome of the battle for Earth was now uncertain. As the conflict continued, the humans and Veridans remained resolute in their determination to protect their world and defeat the Gorthan invaders. The alliance was a symbol of hope and resilience, demonstrating that even in the darkest moments, unity and courage could overcome the greatest of challenges. The final stand. The battle for Earth had reached its climax. The combined forces of humans and Veridans had successfully pushed back the Gorthan invaders and forced them into a defensive posture. The time had come for the final confrontation, and both sides prepared for the decisive showdown. Dr. Elena Garcia and Commander Area, working together with their respective teams, developed a comprehensive plan for the final assault. The goal was to strike at the heart of the Gorthan command structure and deliver a decisive blow that would end the invasion once and for all. The plan involved a coordinated attack on the Gorthan's primary command ship, which was stationed in low orbit above the planet. The assault would be launched from multiple fronts, with human and Veridan forces working in tandem to overwhelm the Gorthan defenses and breach the command ship. As the final assault began, the skies were filled with the sounds of battle. Human and Veridan forces launched a series of precision strikes against the Gorthan command ship, targeting key systems and infrastructure. The Gorthans, caught off guard by the intensity and coordination of the attack, struggled to mount an effective defense. Dr. Garcia and Commander Area led the assault from the front, demonstrating remarkable bravery and leadership. Their combined forces pressed the attack with unwavering determination, pushing through the Gorthan defenses and making their way toward the command ship's core. Inside the command ship, Zoreth, the Gorthan war leader, faced the reality of impending defeat. His once confident demeanor had been replaced by a sense of urgency and desperation. The Gorthan forces, though formidable, were unable to withstand the relentless assault of the united human-Veridan front. As the final moments of the battle unfolded, Dr. Garcia and Commander Area reached the heart of the command ship. With a coordinated effort, they delivered a decisive strike that crippled the Gorthan's command structure and effectively ended the invasion. The defeat of the Gorthan forces marked a turning point in the conflict. The once threatening invaders were now in full retreat, and the human and Veridan forces celebrated their hard-won victory. The battle for Earth had been arduous, but the strength and resilience of its defenders had prevailed. In the aftermath of the final stand, the world began the process of recovery and rebuilding. The alliance between the humans and Veridans had proven to be a powerful force for good, and the lessons learned from the conflict would shape the future of both races. The story of Earth's struggle against the Gorthan invaders became a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity and the power of unity. The conflict had tested the limits of courage and determination, but in the end, it was the strength of the human spirit that secured victory and ensured the continued survival of their world. As the sun rose on a new day, the defenders of Earth looked toward the future with hope and optimism, knowing that they had faced the darkest of challenges and emerged stronger than ever before.